Good evening. A huge loss for the Indian Navy. All 18 sailors on board a state-of-the-art submarine, the INS Sindhurakshak, may have been killed after the submarine exploded around midnight at the naval dockyards in Mumbai. The submarine, the INS Sindhurakshak, has sunk in its pier. Now, a fire on board the submarine is thought to have triggered the detonation of Russian-built heavyweight torpedoes or cruise missiles which it carried. The images that you see on your screen are of the Club missile on board a sister ship of this class, the Sindhurakshak. NDTV has learned that the INS Sindhurakshak was fully armed with torpedoes and land attack cruise missiles, this missile, when a fire broke out on board. The multiple blasts were so loud that they could be heard and seen across parts of South Mumbai. Now, the Navy Chief, Admiral D.K. Joshi, has confirmed that no other submarine in the area has been damaged. There was apprehension that another submarine of the same class could have been damaged. He's ruled that out. The Navy Chief says sabotage has been ruled out as well. Most likely they will examine the possibility of sabotage. For the moment, he says that is not the case. But let's focus on a few more details. This is the second incident involving the INS Sindhurakshak. In 2010, one sailor was killed and two were injured. The images that you see on the screen right now are of a Kilo class submarine. Now, the Sindhurakshak is in fact a Kilo class submarine. This gives you an idea of what these submarines, they're virtually identical externally, they look like. Now, I was talking about the Sindhurakshak. In 2010, one sailor was killed, two were injured after a fire broke out in the submarine's battery compartment after a hydrogen leak. Now, the INS Sindhurakshak, which has been lost today, has been widely considered one of the most advanced non-nuclear submarines in the world. Now India will be left with only 9 such submarines. The shots that you see are of the inside of Kilo class submarines. Now, notice that these are confined spaces inside the submarine. It's difficult to operate. Imagine now rescue operations are going on. But before I come to that, India operates 10 Kilo class submarines, now possibly 9. The loss of one platform and damage to another, which has now fortunately been ruled out, has rendered an operational blow to the Navy, which relies heavily on this class of submarine. Now, the Sindhurakshak had just completed a 2.5-year overhaul in Russia, where it was equipped with Club land attack cruise missiles, which I showed you just a little while back, a new Indian-built sonar and radar. These are images of the submarine in Russia a few months back, shortly before it was launched for the Indian Navy after being refitted. The submarine was handed back to the Indian Navy in January, but it returned to India only in April. Well, what's happening now? At the moment, attempts are on to reach out, to look for survivors who may miraculously have survived. The Navy Chief says he is prepared for the worst. There were 15 sailors and 3 officers on board. Now, what has the Navy done in the last few hours? Navy divers have managed to enter the submarine in just the last few hours through the conning tower on the top of the submarine. That has one of the escape hatches. That's the main hatch. But that hatch was badly jammed because of the impact of the blast, which took place to the front end of the submarine, the bow of the submarine. But they were somehow able to get through. Navy divers are presently operating inside the mangled remains of the submarine. These are shots of the inside of what a normal Kilo class submarine looks like. I want to stay with these shots because, as you can see over here, these are very narrow operating spaces. And imagine these narrow operating spaces with zero visibility and mangled remains of debris over there, and possibly the remains of people who could have been killed. That's what Navy divers are now trying to do, operating in zero visibility in a very dangerous environment. There are weapons also, some of which have gone off, as we know as a fact. So Navy divers operating inside the mangled remains of the submarine, which has many confined spaces. The entire submarine at this stage, we are told, has been flooded. Navy divers are looking for a compartment where there may be survivors who may have access. Breathing apparatus, anyone surviving after so many hours appears very remote. There were 3 officers on board, 2 were married. There were 15 sailors on board, 6 were married. We're going to run through some of the key points mentioned by the Navy Chief, Admiral D.K. Joshi.
It took around 2 hours to douse the fire. In the process, the water ingress that took place from the forward end of the submarine, from the torpedo compartment where the explosion had occurred, as also the water that was used for dousing the fire, resulted in simultaneous flooding of the submarine, with the result that initially the bow end, the forward end, there was a trim, and the clearance alongside south breakwater where the submarine was berthed between the keel and the seabed is of the order of around 3 meters, and initially the bow end came to rest on the seabed, and subsequently the entire submarine settled and currently is sitting alongside in around 3 meters of water.
Okay, a couple of key points as we see these images of a Kilo class submarine. That's the conning tower. That's the central structure in the middle of the submarine. That's where Navy divers have now been able to access the submarine itself. The entire submarine is sunk at the moment in the pier, as the Navy chief mentioned, in about 3.5 meters of water. Initially, it was the bow end, the front end of the submarine, which actually went down, because it was in the front end of the submarine that the weapons bay is located, the cruise missiles are located, the torpedoes are located. The Navy chief says that there was an explosion over there, as a result of which the bow end began to list. Now, there was water which was also pumped in to ensure that to try and control the fire. So many chambers or many compartments of this submarine, each submarine has many compartments. Many of these compartments have been flooded. As a result of the flooding, the entire submarine went down, and it rests now in about 3.5 meters of water. It has sunk. Let's take a look now at some of the other points which have been mentioned by the Navy chief.
On any warship, and it is more pronounced on a submarine, there are several ingredients that can contribute to or cause a fire. There is explosive and ammunition on board, obviously. There is fuel. On board a submarine, there is also oxygen bottles. There are battery pits, which at times may exude certain portions of hydrogen. Any combination of any of these malfunctioning could have resulted in the sequencing of the fire. From what the indications are, initially there was a primary explosion of a smaller intensity, which caused the bigger explosions, because the ordnance that was kept in the forward torpedo compartment would have been ignited, which resulted in the two major explosions.